Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Rich Sutter, Pete Coles. We're in the zone. We're also in the snow zone today, folks. A little bit of something coming down, which caused a school day for everybody, which is really good. Love school days. Everybody get to take a nice day off, relax, chill out. It's Thursday, so almost made it to the end of the week. You get back into school for one more day, and you're all set. Pete was on a rocket launch, which then led Pete to come home with a little bit of something. And so it's been a while since we've been back in the studio, Pete, and it feels pretty good to be back in the seat.
Absolutely. It's been quite a while. Last week I was so sick, and I'm sure everybody else can understand exactly what I was going through because they've probably been through it too.
So much going around. I just pray and wish the best for people. All right, so we're going to jump off, folks. It's been a little bit of time. So there's so much that's gone on in the college basketball and the pro basketball world. We got trades. We got top 25 moving all around. The Power 15 is in the most flux it's been in years, and we love it. We love it. This might have been one of my favorite college basketball seasons of all time going on right now.
There's a lot of parity out there, right?
In the regular season, yeah, it is just we have something in the show later to tell you how many AP top 25 teams lost on Saturday. And it was the most. It was a record setter, so we'll go into that a little bit later. But right now we have a segment of the show that we call Pete's Corner. Pete hoists up three three-pointers at me, and we try and put them through the net, see if we can work them out. Shoot it, Pete.
All right, so the NCAA claims that women's college athletes are going to get more affected by this latest executive order than male college athletes. They claim that because of the way Title IX is written, they can't get paid NIL. Is that just bogus? Am I reading this wrong?
You're in a situation right now where we alluded to this a while back on the show. We talked about this. This is going to be tied up in courts for a really, really long time now because it was very, very poorly conceived, poorly constructed, and poorly executed. Extremely poorly. Grade F on all three of those counts. So now you're talking about the Office of Civil Rights, Title IX, Title VII, Title 42, Title 29. There's a bunch of them out there. And they all point to, it's broader than athletics because Title IX is a federal law. Title IX applies to a lot of different areas in our lives. But basically what Title IX means on the college campus environment is that you, and it's the reason I was smiling when you asked this question, Pete, because I was just reading a couple of articles on it. And the Office of Civil Rights is going to be involved in this right now. And they're saying exactly what the women are saying, is that you cannot distribute these funds inequitably. And that's what's happening right now. Because if your sport produces revenue, you're getting funds. If your sport doesn't produce revenue, it seems like you're not getting funds. Plus, the outside stream of that seems to have been very limited for women, to Caitlin Clark and Olivia Dunn, some of the big names out there. But, just about every male player in the country right now is getting paid significant amounts of money. And the women are not. And this is where I said this rub was going to go. This was the problem of the whole thing, is that you still are, whether you like it or not, NCAA been kicked out of the room or not, you're still under federal auspices of Title IX. And in that realm, I didn't know how they would ever be able to do what they're doing right now. By claiming revenue, by claiming these sports are making the most money, and then allowing those athletes only to distribute and share in that revenue. I think it's been a problem from minute one, and I think that the women should have equal distribution. Just because you're making money in one area of the organization. Let me give you an example. IBM. Do you think every single area of that company makes a significant amount of profit?
No.
Of course not. And so, but they're all getting profit sharing, they're all getting salaries, they're all getting paid. So not every area of an entity will operate in a profit zone. They have other intrinsic value to the product. And so therefore, the women are 100% right in this, and I'm in their corner 100% on this, that they should be given a more equitable distribution of those funds. Absolutely. If you're going to distribute it to the men, you're going to have to absolutely distribute it to the women. And you cannot sit there and tell me, because when you look at the totality of it, Rutgers is under $50 million. How are they paying anybody?
Right.
So now you're going to go sport by sport. Football made money. Women's soccer lost money. I don't think that works either. Great question, Pete. I think it's going to get tied up for a really long time. And the reason it's going to get tied up, this just doesn't happen now. This is 20 years of marination in this stew. 20 years of the NCAA playing heavy with everybody, telling everybody what you could and couldn't do as far as earning money, earning a living, and that backfired on them tremendously. But at the same time, the backfire, it just was buckshot. It just sprayed everywhere.
Think
and right
about this,
now,
though.
You just have lunacy.
The back pay, once this gets adjudicated from when the time the thing was filed, can they make up the back pay?
They have to.
Like that's going to bankrupt some of these conferences. No,
Let me give you a little bit of something that might.
Maybe we'll make this question 2.
It could be. It could be. There's a lot of depth to it, Pete. There's a lot of depth to it, and that's why the lawyers are kind of taking control of it right now. But when you look at the whole thing, you just say it's a mess. It's a mess, and then you sit there and say, to your question, how does it make sense moving forward? How do we make this workable moving forward? I don't know. And now you're going to be tied up in courts for a really, really long time. Really long time, in my opinion.
All right.
Nothing moves quickly in the courts.
So on to portal potty. I've heard this idea floated to make portal potty a little bit less Wild West. Is that the school that loses a student when they go into the portal potty, they'd have to pay a transaction fee to the school the school that gets the student would have to pay a transaction fee to the school that loses a student. Would that slow down the portal?
Oh, it probably would, because as I alluded to before, you have some of the coaches just pushing their mistakes into the portal. You sign a kid, he turns out to be a bad teammate. You push him in the portal. You sign a kid, turns out he's not as good as you and your assistant coaches thought he was. You push him in the portal. So that might alleviate some of that. But I don't see how that's ever going to be workable. Players for years should have had the ability to transfer freely. The reason that they kept it out of conferences for a long time is because of the bad blood that creates. You're seeing it now. Seeing the fights on the sidelines. You had a fight in an Atlantic 10 game in the stands where they had to stop the game. And so they're just caught up in this thing, and it's really going on a wild, wild ride. And where it really winds up is almost like a roller coaster. You hope it winds up in its silo back in there and gets to take another turn around the sun. But right now, I have never, ever in my life been more scared and more worried about the state of athletics, the state of college basketball than I have in a really, really long time. I grew up in this thing. It's never been good because of human element, Pete. Human element. You had that first guy that dropped the bag. Who was the first atom of the bag dropping, right? And then from that inception, it grew, it fostered, and it became not only part of the fabric, it became now it's part of the absolute, the whole timber of everything we're doing right now. It's all about the money. It's only about the money. And when we started this show, 91, 92 shows ago, we said, this is going to be really hard to turn around because it's buttressed by as many pictures of the president as it currently is. This is not going to have a happy ending to me. It may have a happy ending to other people, but it's also, people have to look at this for what it is. It's movement of wealth. It's wealth transferal.
Yeah.
Okay? That's exactly what you're seeing here. It's wealth transferal. Look into it a little deeper like that, and you'll see it for what it is. Shoot it, Pete.
Question number 3. Was this ref at fault?
Bailey has his primary defender.
Oh, my God, I was going to send you this, Pete.
Jeffrey Anderson also still gets it to
How
go.
does a ref get in that spot?
Watch the end of this. And then watch this player's reaction. Watch his reaction. He turns to the ref. He goes, "What are you doing?" He looked like he held him out of that play. I mean, this has to be investigated. How close was it to the line? That's the thing that has to be going back now. If you go, we got all this AI stuff. Look at this. He trips, he falls, but now he's pushing that guy out of the way. The guy turns around and goes, "What are you doing?" That don't look right to me, Pete. That don't look right to me. As an official, he's in terrible position.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Terrible position as an official. But B, I mean, come on. I mean, that looks like, holy smokes. If I was him, I wouldn't be surprised to see a knock come on the door pretty soon. And when you have all of this stuff going on, they talked about it with Tim Donaghy and the NBA officials. And I talked about it all the time on the show. The human element. People are going to, Jonte Porter is going to put prop bets on himself so he can make a little bit more money. He's going to tell all of his friends, hey, man, get down with me. I'm going to take a powder in the first quarter tonight, bet on my 3-point prop bet.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
This is the door they've opened. And if you don't think referees, coaches, players, everybody is now participating in this legal gambling forum, you're facetious. You are crazy if you don't think this is now widespread. And the reason that they hit that young man in the NBA as hard as they hit him is because they wanted to send a message to everybody else. But it's broken. You see the scandal that they're looking into at Temple University with their basketball team. I will guarantee all of our In the Zone listeners right here, 100% Sutter's going to put his money on it that there's going to be another one of those this year. Another team is going to be involved in a gambling scandal, prop bet, squeezing the line, doing whatever they can to help their guys get some money. You could tell everybody in your dorm room, Pete, I want you to put $1,000 on this prop bet. And at the end of the day, you're going to give me $200 back.
Wow.
What's stopping that?
Wow.
Human element. They weren't ready for the human element of this thing.
Yep.
And now it's out there. And I wish I had better news for the human race, that you could say we could trust people and we could allow people to their own devices. But that's why you have all these heavy-handed laws, and that's why you have all these heavy-handed regulations by the NCAA, because on the other side there's dudes that were bagging it. Here's what dudes who put the bags under the table. There were guys who cheated the paradigm. There were guys who tilted the playing field long before the NIL. And that's why we're in this, because it's in the hands of weak men. And nothing valuable can be sustained and held in the hands of weak men. And you've seen what's happened when you have all of these weak men associated with the product of athletics. It's bad. It's not going to get any better, folks. But that's why we're here. Yep. We're going to keep giving you the In the Zone Power 15. We're going to give you the top 25. We're going to give it to you as straight as we can. I think that's why our viewership's good. I think that's why people like in watching our show. And we get some great comments from people all the time about how we seem to be more spot on than some of the legacy media right now. Because I got to be honest with you, folks, the legacy media, as you're finding out right now, when they canceled that USAID thing the other day, Politico was taking in excess of $50 million. All of these other media, Project Mockingbird is in full swing, folks. Project Mockingbird is in full swing. That's why people are moving to podcasts. That's why people are moving to independent media, because they know that they're not under the thumb, and they know that they may get a better spot. That's why Pete Cole's going to be famous someday. Pete, let's go to the Power 15 in the NCAA. There it is, folks. A thing of beauty. I like it because OKC has taken control.
Holy cow.
Pete, they lost Holmgren for a really long time. That's why I think Mark Daigneault has to be considered for Coach of the Year. They've lost one of their best players for a really long time, and they've been able to sustain it. The question is, were the Cavaliers going to come back to everybody? And it looks like they are. They lost to the Celtics the other night, and the Celtics had a really good game. Cavaliers have been falling a little bit. I thought that this might happen because I thought they were flying a little bit above their altitude level. But right now, they're doing well, sustaining. But I think that the Celtics wind up in front of them before the end of the year. Boston Celtics in number 3. 15 losses, Pete. 15 losses. We'd have to go way, way back to last year to find out when they had 15 losses.
Yeah, that's crazy.
There's something not right with this team. And they're also now talking about Jrue Holiday on the trading block. We got other trades to talk about as well. We're going to talk about right after this, a couple of blockbusters. But Jrue Holiday would really knock this out of the park.
Have they figured out their luxury tax problem yet?
Well, that's what I was just going to bring up next, Pete, is that they have that luxury tax issue, and it's going to have to get sorted out some way, and you're going to see at least 1, 2 of those Celtics being moved on, and they're not going to be replacement players. You're just going to look at what the Miami Heat just did with Jimmy Butler. They got rid of him and didn't bring really anybody else in so that they can load up their salary for 2026. You might see the same thing with the Celtics, except on the other side of it, where they're not saving for 2026. They're trying to cut. They're trying to cut for 2026. All right, Memphis Grizzlies, one of my surprise teams of the year. Obviously, the Thunder, everybody thought would be up there. Cavaliers, no way. The Grizzlies, not this high, and no, the Houston Rockets either. They should be really commended for those sports, the promise that those programs have right now with their young talent, but also they've helped flip the NBA right upside down. New York Knicks, 34-17, maybe playing the best basketball in the Eastern Conference right now. They're very mercurial, though, and there's talk that they may be trading for Kevin Durant right now. Wish we had given you more of that, because right now we're trying to figure that whole thing out. Maybe Pete can see if that's actually happened, but I know Durant was possibly en route to New York for Mikal Bridges and a couple of other players. You have the Houston Rockets, 32-18. Ime Udoka has to be considered for Coach of the Year in that thing. Young, really, really good athletic team that can really make some strides in the playoffs, I believe. Denver Nuggets, 32-19. Just 2 years off of an NBA championship, and they're kind of floundering. You have Jokic, and you have some other good pieces there, but I don't know what happened to Jamal Murray. He's one of their great players in that championship run, and he has just fallen off the charts in his last couple of years. Los Angeles Lakers, 29-19. I'm very critical of J.J. Redick, very critical of the hire. But I got to give him his due. I think he's done a pretty good job. 29-19, and again, we'll talk about it later, but the blockbuster trade of the year, maybe of the decade, was sending Luka to the Lakers and sending Anthony Davis to the Mavericks. That was huge. We'll talk about that in depth.
Kevin Durant staying with his team.
He's staying. All right, the Knicks couldn't pull it off. They didn't have enough on the table, I didn't think, the Knicks to pull that off.
Well,
Mikal Bridges and somebody else. For
neither did Golden State or Miami.
Yeah, I think Golden State got shut down because Durant didn't want to go there, but Golden State now has Jimmy Butler, so we'll see how that turns out.
That's as of an hour ago.
Right. The Clippers, doing a great job. I think they have a deficit of roster, a deficit of lineup, and I think they're holding on tight. Harden's had a really good year, and as I said, he seems to be better when he's out there by himself. When you surround him with better players, they all want the ball, and he's a ball control guy, and so it doesn't really fit. The Bucks, 27-22, have cooled off a little bit since their Cup championship victory. Giannis is carrying this team. They're also looking at some trade stuff as well. Minnesota Timberwolves, 28-23. A little bit of a disappointment for me, Pete. I thought they'd be better, but then they got tied up, with the Knicks and in that trade, and it just hasn't. It seemed to work out well for the Knicks and not so much for the Timberwolves. Let's go back and rewind the clock, though, Pete. When we tell you to stay off of somebody, stay off of them. Okay? You jumped all over Julius Randle. We were calling him Julius Randle last year because there was no D. The D was completely silent. And we watched video of him on this show standing around while his teammates were playing 5-on-4. Now, you take Luka Doncic, who we call Luka Ončić, who plays the lowest level of defense in the entire NBA, in my opinion, and then put him with LeBron James, who hasn't been in a defensive stance for a really, really long time.
Yeah. You're
counting on a whole lot of your offensive side of the ball. Not only that, Anthony Davis was playing great basketball for you, and you gave up Anthony Davis, who's 31, for Luka, 25, but I'd say Luka biologically might be 31 also. That's just my take. Miami Heat and the Kings close it out, Pete. Miami Heat and the Kings close it out. Really good stuff. The Heat are hanging on. I think they get better when they get rid of Butler. I really do. Having that in your locker room is like having a disease. It's bad, and it will erode your team. It will take away all of your continuity, take away all of your culture, and it's amazing how they say back in that old day, the Jackson 5, one bad apple does spoil the whole bunch, and it really does. It's terrible when you have that. And as a coach, as a franchise, when you're trying to manage that, and you're getting it from all different levels in all different places, man, that's you wonder why, the ACC has hemorrhaged 8 coaches in the last 4 years. Let's get into the Luka thing. Luka Doncic now, Pete, he's gone out of Dallas and into the Lakers, and the Jazz somehow got involved in that. I hate when they do these three-way things, and I hate when they load all of this ancillary stuff into the trade, which has absolutely zero bearing because most likely they'll trade that stuff away to somebody else. But Dallas gets, 25 years versus 31 years. Butler, not a great guy in the locker room, apparently. Also, Luka Doncic hasn't been labeled as one of the great guys in the locker room. If you see a clip of him having a press conference, he's standing out there with a can of something in his hand. I couldn't tell what it was. Looked like a can of beer maybe. And one of the guys from the Mavericks, general manager, assistant general manager, has to come by while he's doing the interview and take the beer can out of his hand. Because that's not what the Mavericks want as their show, as their illustration. And I'm okay with that.
But if Luka's going to the Lakers, the only thing he has to do is kiss LeBron's ring, and he's good. He doesn't have to be a good teammate as long as he sucks up to LeBron.
100%. 100%. Anthony Davis said, if you think LeBron, like they're saying, did LeBron know about this trade? Was he informed? Nothing happens. They don't sell popcorn in that stadium without him knowing it.
Right.
Okay? So let's get off of that. And Pete's 100% right. Just go in, kiss the ring, and do the right thing, and, face the bishop, kowtow, and genuflect, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But Luka, is he that kind of guy? We'll find out.
Depends on how many dollar signs are behind it.
It screwed him a little bit, Pete, because he doesn't get to sign a supermax contract. Doncic, Kleber, and Markieff Morris go to the Lakers. Davis, Max Christie, and the 2029 Lakers first-round pick go to the Mavs. The Jazz go in there and get Jalen Hood-Schifino and a second-rounder. So a little bit of a three-way action there. I don't know. NBA standards of right now with their stats, the leaderboard, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 32.5. Giannis, 31.8. Joker, 29.5. Joker is now officially averaging a triple-double, Pete. Maxey,
Wow.
Tyrese Maxey, back after the injury, has slipped in there. And the old man and the son, Kevin Durant, they couldn't move him. Trading deadline, I think, is right up on us, too. Rebounding, Sabonis, Towns, Joker, Zubac, and Giannis. Giannis having a great year. Right now, I would say, I would love Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to get because I like winning. And I think Donovan Mitchell should be given consideration for the MVP right now. But you have to include those other two guys as well. Joker averaging a triple-double. His team isn't very good, but I don't know that that's his fault. And then you got Giannis doing everything he can in Milwaukee to keep that team rolling, and he's having a monster year as well. Trae Young leading assists, 11.5. Joker, 10.3. 10 assists a game. That's it could be upwards of 30 points if he's assisting on threes. And then he scores 29.5. That's 60 points you're getting out of this guy. And then he's rebounding at 12.9.
This is amazing.
Cade Cunningham, 9.5. LeBron, 9.1. And Tyrese Halliburton, it's not Vice President Cheney's Halliburton anymore. We're talking about Tyrese, and he's having a good year, coming back off a really, really difficult injury.
By the way, Tyrese got himself involved in a little WWE action over the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
He was on Friday Night SmackDown getting involved with some of the wrestlers.
Yep.
And then he was back there again for the Royal Rumble. He didn't get in the match, but he was
Yeah, I think I would venture to say that his Indiana Pacers NBA contract precludes him from getting in the ring with Hulk Hogan. But that could just be a guess. Not allowed to ride motorcycles. I would say wrestling might be out of it. Coach of the Year, Pete, in the NBA right now, I got to go with Kenny Atkinson from the Cavs and Mark Daigneault from the Thunder. Great job. The Cavs and the Thunder, way past the midpoint, are holding court and doing a great job.
Absolutely.
Taylor Jenkins from the Grizzlies doing a fabulous job with that team. Really, really good. Ime Udoka, this is going to be a tough vote. Going to be a really tough vote for Coach of the Year. And I like J.B. Bickerstaff of the Pistons because they're the most improved team in the NBA right now. They were at the bottom. We had a segment last year called Firing on All Pistons. That's how bad they were. The ineptitude, the losing streaks, 19, 20 games in a row. Right now, they're in almost playoff contention. All right, the Mavs and the Cavs, this one, they've traded Luka, and the Mavericks go into Cleveland. How many points did they give up in the first half, Pete? 91.
Oh, my God.
91 points. They lost 144 to 101. I blame Luka for not playing defense a lot, but it doesn't look like they got a whole lot of that going on anywhere else either. Kyrie Irving did not play in this game as well, just as an FYI. No Luka, no Kyrie. Klay Pigeon Thompson, 1 for 10. Step up, Klay. We got 2 of our starters out, 2 of our best players out. 1 just got traded. Step up. Big game. You're an NBA veteran. This team's going to be on an emotional roller coaster. We need you to step up. 1 for 10, 0 for 6. Glad they paid millions for that. Okay, keep it rolling, Pete. This is how we're going to approach this with Joel Embiid. What if he was your drummer? What if you had a rock band and he was your drummer? Okay, he's out of the leg law firm. Leonard, Embiid, and George. More missed games than anybody. If you have a problem with your contract and don't want to report back to work, call the leg law firm. Okay. Pete, put your hat on, Pete. Hold on to your seat. He's played in 446 games. Mm-hmm. He's missed 400.
Wow.
In 14-15, he missed 82 games and was paid $4.4 million. In 15-16, he missed 82 games and still got paid $4.6 million. Now fast forward to 23-24, he played 39 games and missed 43, and he got $47 million for that. And this year, 24-25, he's arrived at 13 games and missed 32 for a rough total of $57 million, folks. You divide 13 by 57.
Make it rain.
Comes out to almost $4 million a game.
Make it rain out there.
All right, Pete. The blockbuster trades are rolling. The Butler did it. J.J. Butler, he got himself out. He wanted out. He got out. Now, be careful what you wish for, because right now, the Warriors are not relevant. The Warriors are having issues. They got big issues. And so you just went to a team that traded out a couple of guys that were helping them, but now brought in maybe 1, 2, 3 of the NBA's worst locker room guys of all time. Okay? So $121 million extension he just signed. $60 million. I don't even want to get into what went on with the trade, because really there wasn't much there. They just wanted to get rid of him, and they didn't want to pick up a whole lot of salary. That's how you know. That's when an NBA team will say, just take him. Just get him out of here. We don't want him anymore. It's unbelievable. That's what happened to Harden. That's what happened to Russell Westbrook. What happened to Butler. And I hope to God the 76ers click on with Embiid. The Clippers cut Kawhi Leonard. Get rid of these guys.
Yeah.
If you can't play, get rid of them. You're paying $57 million to a guy who played 13 games. What are the injuries?
Gotta go.
What were the injuries? I want to know.
Well, he missed 2 seasons completely. 82 games. That's 2 seasons.
I want to know. Were you in a full body cast? Okay, Pete. Let's slip to Super 25 in the NCAA. This one was hard, Pete. This one was hard. I tell you, this is really. And since we started doing this, I'm following it a little closer than I normally would, and I'm watching this thing, and I'm just shaking my head going, this thing is a snow globe. This isn't a college basketball season anymore. It's a snow globe. And right outside it's snowing. Inside of every gym in the NCAA, it's snowing right now. Look at UConn. Look at Houston. Look at some of the great teams in the past that have been at the top. Boy, they're getting run through the ringer. And the SEC, comment made by Coach Calipari, that this SEC is the best conference of all time. I might agree with him there. They're in 14th place. So maybe that's why he's making that comment. Mm-hmm. But the way this league is stacked right now, it's not a football conference anymore, Pete. If you go through ours, in our top 5, you got 3 of the top 5 are SEC teams. Where's the Big 12? Where's the Big 10? Where's the Big East?
Pac-10.
Pac-10 is yeah. Those guys are ghosts. All right, let's roll through it. And because their conferences got destroyed, Pete.
Yeah.
Their conferences got destroyed. And then you have Mick Cronin complaining that he saw the Empire State Building 3 times in a row in 1 week. Nobody made you join the league, Mick. Nobody made that happen but you guys. Auburn, 21-1. Janai Broom, Player of the Year candidate, although I got Cooper Flagg over him right now, Pete. I said I'd watch. I said I'd wait all year. This kid's tearing it up. He is absolutely tearing it up. And this Duke team, give Coach Shire, again, like with the J.J. Redick hire, I wasn't happy about this hire. And again, my formula plays out a lot more over the course of stuff that's not anecdotal. You can look at John Shire and say he never coached before. You can look at J.J. Redick, say he never coached before, and they're doing well. I can give you 50, 60, 70 names of guys who got hired, never coached before, and they're on the unemployment line right now. So you have to look at it in the totality of things. But I have to give credit where credit's due. Coach Shire deserves credit. They're 20-2, number 2 in the country, and Auburn's only lost this year, Pete, to the Duke Blue Devils. Alabama, 19-3. Look at when they last lost. That's why I moved them up. They haven't lost in a really long time. This guy's a really good coach too, Oates. Nate Oates, really good coach. Anybody who can live in this environment right now and still get your team to play hard, get after it, and come every night with an intensity, you're doing a good job. Because right now it's near impossible. Near impossible. Florida, 19-3. Love this team, although Walter Clayton is hurt and going to be out for a little bit. This is the surprise team of the year, Pete. Excuse me. St. John's, 20-3. Rick Pitino in year 2, go back historically and look. Kentucky, Louisville, Boston University, for crying out loud. Look at all the places he's been. Year 2 is it. Right now, their defense, I love watching their defense. The way they're jumping around on defense, I love it. They're using switches as a weapon instead of a defense mechanism. They're using switches to really take teams out of their offense as opposed to getting caught sleeping. They're really, really amped up on defense, and I love it. They missed so many free throws at the end of that Marquette game the other night that it was a chance they could lose. But they didn't lose because their defense held. At the end of it, there's a couple of possessions that are online right now. I would urge all the young coaches out there trying to teach your team to play defense, go look at Coach Pitino's. But 20-3 for St. John's. They're in first place in the Big East. They belong right where they're at. Michigan State, and most people have them much lower, Pete. Most people don't have them in the top 5. Michigan State, 18-4, baby. Izzo. And now you're in Izzo time. February, he's going to get it rolling. They're going to get it fired up, and they're going to be good. At the end of the year, they have a very talented team. Young, got some experience. It's a typical Izzo team. Watch out for them because he's the preparation king. He's going to know every one of your plays. He's going to know what kind of gum your managers are chewing. He's going to know everything about you. Be ready for it. Houston, 18-4. And again, Pete, this is a team that got clipped the other day, but they hadn't lost in a really long time. And this is a monster conference, and they're in first place. Look at Kelvin Sampson's record of accomplishment over the last 5 years. It's unbelievable. Okay, Tennessee, 19-4, hanging on. I didn't like what Florida did to them. Florida dismantled them, beat them by 30, held them to 7 field goals in the entire game for a long. It was just a defensive juggernaut, and that scared me a little bit about Tennessee, although Coach Barnes is a genius. He's going to recalibrate. He's going to use a loss to get him back on track, and I think he's done that. Texas Tech is a surprise team, Pete. I didn't think they'd hold on like this, 18-4, and they are cleaning people. They are going down on the road. They're doing a good job, and at home they're unbelievable. So really, really good. I left Missouri in the top 10. They had a rough loss last week, but they're 17-5, and I like this team. Boy, they can cause problems for you. And if you go into Missouri, that's one of the best home court advantages that I've seen in a while. Clemson, 18-5. I'm just trying to give the ACC some relevance here, and they belong there. But right now, you have Duke, hyperspace. Everybody else is just, and this is a tribute to Coach Brownell, who's a great basketball coach. And for years, it was like, fire Brownell, fire Brownell, fire Brownell. And they didn't listen. They held on to him, and thank God they didn't, because they're 18-5, and I got them at 11 because they got some really good wins. St. Mary's is 20-3. Really, really good program, and they have usurped Gonzaga's authority in the WAC. They've taken it, and Gonzaga's not even in second place anymore. Memphis, Penny Hardaway, 19-4. Whacked his entire staff right before the beginning of the year. Watch this team play, and at times they look unbelievable, and then they look crazy. So depends who's going to show up, but 19-4, they're holding water. They benefit from being in a pretty down league also. Their league's not that strong this year. Iowa State, 17-5, took it on the chin last week, and they got beat bad. So I had to drop them a little bit because they got beat, and they didn't look good. Gilbert and Tipsy, man, the way they played defense the other day, it looked to me like there was a lot of misdirection, a lot of different things happening in their area, and those gentlemen didn't have good focus on the basketball, and they got killed on a bunch of possessions late in that game that really cost them. They're going to have to do a much better job of having all eyes on that basketball. They're not doing a good job of that right now. San Diego State, this team, Pete, over the years, look back 5, 7, 10 years, they're just doing a great job. It's a great job. It's a good campus, good environment, but, man, they're doing a great job. Now, who doesn't want to go to school in San Diego? 15-5, they're doing good. Texas A&M, the buzzsaw, Buzz Williams, Wade Taylor. They got a lot of talent on this team. They're also in a really rough conference. They're 17-5. Keep an eye on that team late in the year, though. Marquette, 18-5. St. John's beat them the other night. UConn beat them the other day. So they've taken 2 hits in the Big East that are big hits, and when you lose in your league, you see those standings start to evolve very, very quickly, where St. John's is moving up top. UConn's coming, but then you got some other teams in there, Xavier, Butler, some teams that have really hit the back and now are really starting to slide. Kansas at 16-6, said it before, I'll say it again, there's something not with this team. Something not right with this team. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's an internal thing, but I say this to my team all the time. Boats don't sink because of the water outside the boat. Boats sink when water gets inside the boat.
Yep.
I think they got water in the boat in Kansas, Pete. I don't know why. Connecticut, I put them in at 19, but they're 16-6. A lot of losses. I'm going to give it to them straight also. You got a couple of guys on your team that can't defend, and they're being targeted. And as long as you have them out there, they're going to get targeted, and they're going to give up baskets. You need to form that defense up a little bit by either going into some zone from different times or having those guys sit a little bit and not having as many of them out on the floor as one time. Okay, Mississippi, 17-6. They're doing good. They're in a really tough league, the SEC, but they're holding water. They pounded Kentucky the other night. Pounded them. I watched that game. This guy Beard's a good coach. I don't know what happened to him down in Texas. I don't know what went on with all that stuff down there, but the guy's a good basketball coach. I'll give him that. Wisconsin, 18-5. This guy should be up for Coach of the Year. The way that roster rolled over, and they just don't have the NIL and all the other stuff that everybody else has. Done a good job. Michigan, 17-5. One of the reclamation projects, Louisville, Michigan. Just really, really good. Vanderbilt, really, really good reclamation projects here that they had coaches where they weren't achieving, got rid of them for some lower level coaches that had really achieved well. Dusty May, Mark Byington, and now you're seeing their programs, Pat Kelsey, the programs having immediate relief and turning in the right direction and trending in the right direction. The bad news for the coaches that are out there right now is that's going to spin the carousel even a little faster because ADs are now seeing you can get better in 1 year. This isn't a 3 or 4 year process anymore. Coaches are willing to take jobs now that they wouldn't have taken in the past because they thought they were career suicide, like the Louisville job. But now they've been able to move it up because of the NIL, paying players, and being in the portal. So that's created a whole nother enterprise of its own. And as I said before, and I'll say it again, now the thing is on return of investment. Mm-hmm. Now you're looking at, you paid $1.5 million for this guy. You're looking at teams where they play 7 players, 8 players, 6 players. That means you got 8, 9 guys on the bench. Are all of those guys getting paid and they don't play? I think you might want to look at apportionment also and see how you're spending your dollars and are you spending them wisely. Maryland, one of the best front lines in the country. D. Queen, I love him as a top 10. And you got Julian Reese there. I like him as a second rounder. So Maryland's got 2 pros on this team. Gillespie, backcourt, pretty good. They got some pieces. Let's see what they can do. Purdue, 18-5. Drake, This is a guy that has to get Coach of the Year consideration. He came from a Division II school. Drake don't got that NIL money like everybody else does. Okay, they're not a Power 5. All right, they're in Missouri, I think. Okay, he goes in 1 year, brings all of his guys from his Division II school, 21-2, and playing a big schedule. Ben McCollum has to be given, and he won't be, but he should be given some measure for National Coach of the Year, in my opinion. Pete, we have the Cousy Award winners. Now, with Cousy, I always thought this award was given to somebody that was under 6 foot. They may have changed the parameters to make it for the best guard in the country. But this Bob Cousy Award is a pretty big award. It's like the John Wooden Award, very, very prestigious to win. And here are the 9 names that they have for it. Mark Sears from Alabama, got to be considered a favorite. Walter Clayton from Florida, right up there, 1 and 2, I would say. Ryan Nembhard from Gonzaga, just hasn't had that type of year. I'm glad he's on the list. He's a great player, but hasn't had that type of year. Keshawn Gilbert from Iowa State, overrated. He's a little bit overrated in my opinion. Cam Jones from Marquette, there's your 1, 2, and 3. Sears, Clayton, and Jones are your 1, 2, and 3. Ace Baldwin from Penn State, really, really good year. Braden Smith from Purdue's leading the country in assists, and really the reason Purdue has any credibility at all. Zakai Ziegler from Tennessee. I think you got Chaz Lanier over there as well, so they may split a little bit of that. And then you have Javon Small, who probably out of all of these guys won't get the award, but might be having the best year. He's having an incredible year. Last week, Saturday, Pete, we told you we'd tell you this. 11 ranked teams hit the deck. 11. That's an AP record, the most since the AP has been established. Why, Pete?
Because there's parity and conference moves and NIL and portal.
Do you think that the parity was intended?
No, I think they were shocked that because I think the portal was created so that the good teams could get better, and they're surprised by how much parity has come out of it.
And do you think that they're a little bit surprised at when they opened the portal, how many entrants went in?
Oh, they had to be shocked. They thought they were going to use the top coaches and the top conferences thought they were going to use as their plaything to cherry pick the lower schools.
How, you brought up something that's important.
And I'm not a fan, and I know this.
Well, but you brought something up important. If you go into this portal thing and you start to assess a fee on the other side of it, what would be the rationale for that fee? That school spent 2 years educating, feeding, training, and making that player into the better player so that he could go make more money. So if you were in a business situation, you certainly would be compensated.
You want to get something for your investment.
Exactly. When a team leaves a conference, they pay to go into the new conference, and they pay to get out of the old one.
Yep.
So why isn't that something, you hit on something there. Why isn't that an arrangement? Why isn't there some form of compensation? Because there's obviously one party who's been aggrieved.
I've just been reading about it, and more people, I hear people thumping about it out there. So I'm like, well, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
Well, let's personalize it. I went with my roommate and another gentleman, Ed Evans, who's on our board of trustees at Bonaventure. I went to Madison Square Garden where the Bonnies years ago were in the NIT final with Xavier. Okay? Ironic that the following year they decided not to go into it. But at that day, they had 5 juniors on the floor. And they all were committed to coming back to Bonaventure and making this the greatest season possibly in St. Bonaventure history. Maybe going to the Atlantic 10, all the way up to the championship, getting into the NCAA tournament, going to the big dance, maybe winning a game. At that moment, they had 5 starters returning, and all 5 starters were gone by the next season. Destroyed their entire program. Took everybody they had, and there was 0 compensation for it. All of the time, money, and effort that went into educating, supporting, and buttressing their
How about
efforts.
scouting beforehand?
Everything that goes into it. I'm with you. Should there be some form of compensation for that?
Yeah.
You want to cherry pick it. You say the player has the ability to move. No problem with that. But what about the other side of it? What about the compensation side of it? And I think, that's something.
If you want to be a pro league, which is what the NCAA is clamoring for with NIL and everything else, you want to be a pro league, then there's going to be costs associated with that. If you want to be the NBA, well, both teams get something out of that trade. Whether it helps them or not is irregardless. They get something out of that trade.
Yeah, I mean, that's the world you're playing in, right? That's the one you're in, right? That's the playground you wanted to jump into, the playground of compensation. Compensation works a lot of different ways. You better start paying those women something more equitable, and you better start looking at the whole totality of things. And then say, Pete, answer me this. How do they arrive at revenue?
It's mostly from the TV money.
Yeah, but how can anybody tell me what goes into that and what are not counted as your offsets? Let me give you an example.
Well, there's nothing for personnel right now.
Right. So you got a situation where you have scholarships are going to go up in all these different sports. You're going to increase football, increase baseball, increase basketball, men's basketball back to 15. Okay. If the school costs $100,000 and you're paying these guys, and now you're still scholarshiping them, they go for free. Is that cost added into the cost of your total offsets? You say we have revenue. Are you offsetting the $3 million in scholarships?
Right, should be.
Are you offsetting the travel? Are you offsetting the educational, the books, everything that goes into this, the training? Are you offsetting those? So it's a funny way of accounting also. You can add it up any way you want, but as long as you don't put all the variables into the formula, you come up with whatever you want. But what I want to know is what's being counted. I'd love for somebody to tell me how you arrived at revenue for certain sports, but in the totality of things, you lost money. UConn basketball might have made $3 million last year, $5 million last year, but in the totality of it, your sports lost money, $30 million. So I don't understand that whole thing, and I don't understand the accounting of it. But there's going to be some stuff happening in the courts, and it's going to keep going. The best we can do, folks, is to try and keep you informed. The best we can do is to also mock it, make fun of it, and deride it when we see it. That's all we can do. Okay? Pete, the Big East, there's a big one coming up tomorrow. UConn is hosting St. John's in a Big East backyard brawl. Friday night game, going to be amazing, amazing. I would assume Gamble Pavilion could be sold out. St. John's going into hostile arena. It's just going to be Big East basketball at its best. St. John's is in first. UConn's hunting. It's really going to have some ramifications as far as your conference standings go, but also going to have some ramifications also about how you get seeded. That's what's going to be the big measure here. You're going to see a lot of these Power 5 conferences, because their schedules have been roughed up and because they're picking up losses, accumulating losses. Gonzaga is not going to be a 2 seed no more. They're going to wind up in an 8-9 game. And you're going to see some of these NCAA favorite teams wind up in games that they normally wouldn't wind up in. And you're going to see some of these other teams that draw those bids play against teams that are really, really not in that same element. Some of this was fostered on by the whole thing of Virginia losing to UMBC and then Purdue losing to FDU. The NCAA don't want Cinderella. They love to talk about Cinderella, but at the end of the day, you watch it, by the time the Sweet 16 rolls around, Cinderella's pretty much gone to the basement. Loyola Chicago a couple of years ago, George Mason a few years back, yeah, they let that go, but now you're going to see it squeezed, you're going to see it tight, and you're going to bet that of the 16, as you move into the 16 round, into the 8 round, that's going to be power conferences.
But doesn't that hurt the NCAA's bottom line with selling tickets? Because they've outsourced the college football playoff to the college football playoff organization. The NCAA, the only thing they still run for selling tickets and garnering revenue is from the March Madness.
It's amazing because you just hit on it again, Pete. How are they breaking down revenue, right? But I can assure you that if you're looking at Alabama's football team, Penn State's football team, where they have 6 games and 100,000 people come every single night, those ticket revenues are significant. Mm-hmm. I will guarantee you that there are small, paltry sum compared to those television dollars. So anybody who's living off of ticket sales, ticket revenue, and then you throw in that TV money, there you go.
Yeah.
There goes the paradigm, upside down. So that's why you have some of what's going on. Florida plays at Auburn. Going to be a great matchup. That's Saturday. Duke at Clemson. Last chance Duke's going to lose this year, Pete. This game at Clemson, it's the last chance. Nobody has even been within points of them. They're making it really hard for the bookies right now because they're blowing everybody out. On the road, they went to Syracuse the other night, and it was like a 17 or 18-point line. They blew them out by 30.
Oof.
Blew them out by 30. Alabama at Arkansas, another great game. Chance for Calipari to kind of resurrect. His team is playing better, but they're still 14th. Texas A&M at Missouri, and Texas Tech at Arizona. That's going to be a really, really good one. Okay. My guys love the carousel, Pete. They love the coaching carousel. We're on the phone from March to May, all about jobs. Who's going? Who got whacked? Who's going to that job? Who's he taking with him? What's he going to do with that coach? Who's over here? It's its own ecosystem. All right? And every year, you have a guy like Adam Nelson who runs Hoop Dirt. And all he does is just put up everybody who's going, he's really, really good at what he does too. And then you got all these other prognosticators out there. And so a year ago, Adam Nelson, who I consider one of the experts in this whole thing because he's doing it full time now, he said 60 plus.
Wow.
Of 362 jobs are going to change hands.
Wow.
This year, I would say that it's going to be in the 50s. It's going to be in the 50s. It's going to be in the 60s. Some of those hires that were done for emotional reasons are now going to come back. And these teams are going to look for somebody that can lead their program. If you're a top 5 program, you're going to be looking for a top 5 guy. You're not going to get caught up in this, well, he's never coached before, but we really love him, or he coached 1 year and he had a great year. They're not going to do that. They're going to go and find some really, really good guys. So in the early carousel, Pete, you already have 3 ACC teams open. If you translate that, transpose that back to last year, where Calipari, we went through this on the show, but Calipari leaves to go to Arkansas. Mark Pope comes into Kentucky. Somebody has to take BYU. This one goes boom, 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 boom. So one job that opens can create 5, 6 other jobs, as long as you stay in the frame of the hiring network and stay away from retreads. Okay? But right now, Miami's open. Florida State's open. Leonard Hamilton, another ACC coach, said, I've had enough. Virginia is open. Those are 3 monster jobs right now that are open, that if they create 5 jobs apiece, you're looking at 15 jobs just in that microcosm of 3. There will be a significant amount of jobs at the high level, is what I say this year. And that causes the turnstile to spin. When the top level goes, that causes everything else to move. And so if you get a bunch of high-level jobs, it could go to 60. The lower-level jobs, you got coaches that are ready to go. We're going to bring you a list of them in upcoming weeks of young coaches we think are ready to go. We're also going to provide you with a hot seat, unfortunately, of some coaches that just are really, really struggling in their job right now and may not make it. We don't like to prognosticate too much on the coaches that are going to get fired because that's emotional. I don't like to see anybody get fired, but it happens every year. And I don't like to prognosticate on who's going to get it done, but right now, at this moment, you can pretty much tell. All right, Pete, how much did I got? 2, 3 minutes?
You just got about 4.
4, beautiful, beautiful. All right, so I want to go through my Coach of the Year candidates in the NCAA right now. This is hard for me because there's so many good stories out there, so much turmoil turning up and down that you have to kind of bell curve some of this now too, saying, well, look who they played. But if you look at anybody's schedule, look at Auburn's. They have 1 loss They lost to the number 2 team in the country, and a lot of their wins come out of that top 25. A lot of them. So you're looking at a team that's tested, really, really enduring and sustaining through the year. They're 20-1. Bruce Pearl has to be one of your considerations for Coach of the Year. John Shire at Duke, got to be a consideration. All right, young, really, really has this team playing Duke basketball. You know, he understood the culture. I would assume that he has good assistant coaches around him as well. If you turn to North Carolina, where it was the same situation, this is what I talk about. The success of Shire is certainly there and to be credited. But then look at North Carolina with Hubert Davis, hired, didn't really have a lot of experience on the job, and right now they're talking about Mr. Davis being one of the guys that's on the hot seat. I don't see it with Coach Davis because I think he's beloved down there, and I think that'll buy him some time. As my coach Jack Bruin used to say, they'll hit you a lot faster on the way up than they will on the way down. Okay, if you're on the way down and you haven't been nice to people, you're gonna go quick. They're gonna drop you right down that ladder. Rick Pitino has to be considered Coach of the Year, National Coach of the Year. What they're doing at St. John's in year 2, with the talent that they have, I hit them and I said, I don't know where they're getting this talent from. St. John's isn't drawing the big names that all of these other schools are drawing, but he's got them playing defense, Pete. He's got them playing really, really good defense, and they're good offensively too. So Rick Pitino, with them, I have them 5th in the country. I don't know how anybody doesn't have them in the top 10. Tom Izzo, Michigan State. There's people throwing dirt on him. And there are people throwing dirt on all of these older coaches because they assume that they're going to be the next one to throw up their hands and say, I'm out. You know? I don't know about Izzo. He's a tough bird, man. He might be able to adjust, adapt, endure. But if anybody can bring this thing around to his way, it'll be him. That they're going to get paid, they're going to be doing this, but you're going to be in a Michigan State uniform and you're going to represent it with pride. I think Izzo is one of the guys that can hold those two things together. I'm going to go with McCollum, Ben McCollum, right after that. Leonard Hamilton, Florida State, great career, off to the retirement. Get yourself a nice place in Naples, Leonard, and have some fun. Pete, great to be back in the seat. Love the fact that we're in February. My God, it's February 6th today. We're almost through. Almost through. I want to take just one quick second to wish one of my favorite people in the world, my sister Patricia, a happy birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday, sis. You're the best. In the zone, Pete, we'll see you next week.